Dopamine swipe, dopamine swipe. Followers, likes, double tap. Now they control your
What is going on, beautiful people? Welcome to the 817 podcast, where we highlight local trends, updates about business, politics, and anything important in the lovely city of Fort Worth, Texas. It's EJ, and today we have pod resident, the man that comes off the bench to keep the game hot, Mr. Tony Hernandez. Welcome back to the pod.
What's happening, man? Good to be back.
Hey, good to be back. Jimmy is going to be out for the next 2 weeks, so, our brains of the pod, who keeps me accurate, is not here, but hopefully Tony can and I can assist and try to make it happen.
No, you guys are screwed. Sorry, everybody. I apologize in advance.
Yeah, so a little bit about Tony. If you haven't ever heard him on the pod, he's been on several episodes. But I know you're an educator. I know we got education news was in front of the paper about the teacher shortage. I know that's just in your wheelhouse. So is there any kind of, how's that going, and insights that people should know about education in Texas?
Yeah, so I picked up the Star Telegram this morning, and of course, on the front page is a story about a teacher shortage in Fort Worth ISD, and it mirrors what's going on across the country. I work for a teacher preparation program, so we recruit teachers from all over the country to come to the DFW Metroplex and work in our schools. Our goal is to stop this turnover by having folks commit for long periods of time to the schools that they serve in. And what I'm seeing is, people do that a lot of the time. So we've had folks start in 2016 who are still working in schools across the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex. What the story does a good job of pointing out, like, hey, there's a shortage, and it's getting to the point like where Fort Worth ISD is going and picking up people from their central office staff to go in and fill vacancies.
Wow.
They're struggling to find substitutes. We don't have enough qualified teachers to take on positions. They just
do a raise, right? Didn't teachers get raises and stuff and everything? And still,
yeah, absolutely. I think there's financial incentives to come back to the classroom, but we're still competing with people not feeling safe. With fewer teachers means there's more crowded classrooms, which goes against some of the CDC guidance. A lot of this is in Silas Allen's article, again, on the front page of the Sunday paper. So if you want to go take a look at it, I appreciate Silas for highlighting it. I think the problem I have with it is one of the things that wasn't talked about was solutions. And that is, how are we going to find more qualified teachers to come to the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex? I think part of that answer is, in my line of work, we have to recruit nationally. We're going, and DFW is paying teachers relatively well. People can be successful, they can be homeowners, and they can have a good life as a teacher in the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex. There's one big problem. We're having a really hard time finding national talent to come want to work in Texas right now with all of the political noise that is happening. And that's not me projecting. That is a fact. We have spoken to people who do not want to live in Texas, who are nervous about moving here based on the direction that we are going politically, based on our response or lack thereof to COVID. And it's serious. So I think that I appreciate this highlighting an issue that has long been an issue across the district and across the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex and across the country, teacher shortages. What I think people don't understand is that in order to fill those vacancies, it doesn't just start in what Fort Worth ISD is doing to retain talent. It starts with a whole political gamut of things. So love the story, always down to see stuff about teachers, but really disappointed in how Texas political situation is impacting our day-to-day lives in Fort Worth ISD. So if you don't think that the things that are going on in Austin are having an impact on us, just go to your local school, and I promise you we're struggling with keeping talent for those reasons.
Yeah, and right, 70%, you said off the pod or something similar of most people in education, women coming here,
right?
And you have the my body.
Yeah.
Laws are going around to
majority of folks that we recruit, and we are trying to do a better job of recruiting more males, but it's still a struggle just across the board, getting males to want to teach and work in the classroom, especially in elementary settings. But, if 70% on average, our cohorts are about 70% women, or 70% female, and if the perception is that their rights are under attack in the state of Texas through the recent abortion laws, and the vigilantism that has been approved by the state government, how am I going to convince anybody to want to move here? How am I going to get someone to take on a job? they don't care that they get it. There are kids that need great teachers and they want to work in a city that they can get paid to do it, but they don't want to do that to sacrifice their morals to do it. Just doesn't seem like the right idea. To sacrifice their rights to do it doesn't seem like a good idea for them. And I hear him 100%. So I'm glad to see that article. I hope more comes out about what are the solutions and how we're going to fix it. What are the leading causes of teachers not coming into the classroom, and what are the leading causes for people not wanting to be teachers? Because I'll tell you, as someone who worked in a classroom, I'll never have a more rewarding job than that.
Absolutely.
It's just the best. It's the best there ever is. I like my position now. It's rewarding in its own ways, but working with students on a daily basis is the absolute best thing that you can do. So I hope that we can elevate the teaching profession, not just in DFW, but across the country. But we are not going to bring talent into classrooms if we continue to let Texas be run the way that it is.
And we keep, I know both of me and you in education, so this could get down to a long rabbit hole of a whole education pod, but we won't do that to all of you. I just got back from Arizona last week, and even Arizona was making fun of Texas, and I'm like, come on now. But yeah, let's go ahead and move a couple stories. So a lot has happened. Last week we had an interview with Associate Professor of Geography, Kyle Walker, and it was a super dope interview. But with that, it's kind of like we had a lot of little updates happening. So what I really want to hit is, I don't know if you guys have been aware of this idea of trying to get residents vaccinated. And there was this idea across Tarrant County of actually paying residents to get vaccinated. $50 gift card was kind of the option here. And they just basically nixed it, which I think any kind of incentives to do this is the right thing. I'm kind of against it as a whole. But what's really crazy is that recently Tarrant County, this was in the Friday paper, Tarrant County left the door open for county employees and elected officials to get up to $1,000 to get the COVID-19 vaccine. $1,000, people. So kind of get you there. They're already just got salary raises, but a one-time vaccination incentive payment of up to $1,000 may be available for elected officials and county employees. The county commissioners have not yet discussed the vaccine incentive for employees or officials, and County Judge Glenn Whitley said on Wednesday that he didn't know the footnote. So kind of context, this was an idea left on a footnote because I think it's a talking point or a suggestion that people had. And I guess if you don't put it on the agenda anywhere, it's hard to bring it back up. Mm-hmm. So I was just surprised that $1,000 is a ton of money.
Yeah, it's a lot of money to be incentivized to do the right thing.
Yeah, and it also talks about how if they don't do the $1,000, they could give them extra personal days off. I didn't get an extra personal day off or go and get the vaccine. And you're also seeing that there's this idea of potentially family members getting, if they got the vaccine, also getting awards. This sounds like a horrible idea, and whoever put it in the footnote needs to know this is just a bad idea, and this shouldn't even come up.
Yeah, and I think it's worth noting, too. I want to read the very first sentence of this article. This was by Emily Brindley in the Star-Telegram. Tarrant County has left the door open to pay county employees and elected officials up to $1,000 to get the COVID-19 vaccine, even though the county commissioners dropped the idea of an incentive for the public. Hold on a second. So I'm going to incentivize the people who are at the top, who's supposed to be creating these things for the people because they elected us and they put us here. But I'm going to take away their incentive and I'm going to give myself a really big one instead. I hope that Whitley is honest. I hope that the quote here is honest and that he legitimately didn't know. And he's like, I didn't see anything about that. That's crazy. I'm not in favor of that. I hope that's the case. Don't sweep that one under the rug. No, heck no. You're not getting $1,000 for getting the vaccine. Get out of here with that.
Yeah, especially after the commissioners on Tuesday voted for a pay raise. The salaries of a number of elected officials, including the people who make the decisions, voted to give themselves a raise. Only one person, Commissioner Devon Allen, who represents Precinct 2, was the only commissioner to vote against the pay raise. All the affected positions had a maximum salary of well over $100,000. For commissioners, the maximum salary increased from about $183,000 to just over $188,000. With a one-time lump sum payment of about $5,500. $5,500. County Judge Glenn Whitley himself, salary increased from about $193,000 to more than $198,000, with a one-time lump sum payment of nearly $6,000. This is now makes sense why Betsy Price trying to become commissioner. Trying to get that pay raise. It's like a 5x. 8x raise on her mayor's salary.
Yeah.
A year ago, commissioners rejected a 3% raise. So I guess they feel they're doing good to the world by, hey, they sacrifice a year of a pay raise, and so they think that. I just think why I bring that part up, I'm not necessarily know the numbers between other commissioners and other cities, but if you're, an average Fort Worth home makes $62,000. Right? So these people are making 3x as much as you. We got to keep them accountable. It's our duty to say, hey, what are they doing that allows them to live 3x better than the average Fort Worthian? And then on Wednesday, they're supposed to be representing us, and the best thing they can think of is we should give each other $1,000 for getting the vaccine.
Yeah, again, I'm not going to assume bad intent on the $1,000 thing. I'm going to pretend that someone snuck that in there and just thought that it wouldn't get talked about, but you made a mistake. In terms of the salaries, yeah, to your point, I don't know what the competitive salaries are for those things, and their jobs are difficult, right? Like, hey, when COVID came to Tarrant County, it wasn't my face on the news every single day making really tough decisions. It was Judge Whitley's. So I'm not saying that it's not worth it. I'm just saying that, to EJ's point, it is our responsibility as educated and informed citizens to hold our elected officials accountable, and that if they are going to be making these kinds of dollars, then we need to be very aware of what they're doing and why they're doing it, right? People know a heck of a lot more about Zeke Elliott's contract than they do about the people who are actually using our tax dollars to do it, right?
Yeah.
So if we can be informed on the latest fantasy trades and the latest, NFL contracts, I think that we can stand to be informed on a few elected officials in the city that we live in and we call home.
Yeah, and, it's what I always get is like all this is happening because of, Tarrant County being such a purple city. It's y'all's people who ain't taking the vaccine, and now you're trying to award and push. And there's a set of Republicans who believe, hey, right, vaccines are good for the world, and the election wasn't rigged. If we know people in the category of like anti-vaccine, anti-vaxxer, Trump won the election, those people are actually the ones influencing everything, because Commissioner Glenn Whitley is not running for re-election because he's getting ousted because he believed in masks, right? It's because he was promoting masks. So it's like, so then what this happens is this leads to the next thing that we want to talk about, and that is a Star Telegram story where, the crazy kind of radical right Republican has pushed Glenn Whitley out of office, are also now, it's making people like Governor Abbott, who's trying to keep his job, and who knows what other ambitions he has. But now there is, because Trump requested an audit on Texas election results, Tarrant County and 3 other counties announced Thursday by the Texas Secretary of State office, but that and Governor Commissioner Judge Glenn Whitley said that the county is more than ready to assist the office in supporting a full and comprehensive forensic audit on the 2020 election in Dallas. Forensic, like audit, like that just sounds interesting. That sounds like it's I don't know why I did that. Dallas is one of them. Harris, Tarrant, and Collin counties will be, I guess, checked, verified to make sure that things are fair to the election. And this was election a long time ago.
I mean, it wasn't that long ago, but it also is just, I don't know how the former president tells our governor to do something, and he just bent over right away and just did it, right? So, like, I think the problem I have with it, is that Trump asked and Abbott abided without any kind of qualms with it, right? I think that Abbott, to me, the perception here, and if I'm anybody in the state running for office, I would say it feels a heck of a lot like Governor Abbott trusts President Trump, someone who, is far away from me, more than he trusts the election officials and the counties in Texas. I think he trusts, President Trump more than he trusts the people who are in his own state. I got a problem with that, man. Like, Governor Abbott, like, your job is to play for the home team. And you have shown us time and again you're not going to do it. So I'm not surprised, but I'm hella disappointed one more time for Governor Abbott.
And I mean, the election was almost a year ago.
Coming up on a year,
yeah. So it was like a year ago. I mean, imagine us going back to a Super Bowl, a year ago. I'm like, I wonder if that was a first down.
Yeah.
And go ahead.
And I was going to say, I think that the other disappointing part of this is we've already seen the results of this in Maricopa County in Arizona, right? So Maricopa County ran it, and they were like, actually, like, you know what we did? We messed up, like 360 votes. It was a small number, not enough to sway an election one way or the other, but it was still accurate. And those votes actually ended up going to Biden, which again, 300 votes is not going to sway one way or the other. But it's just dumb. This is just a noise. This is just so much stinking noise about President Trump still has influence. Abbott is making it abundantly clear to his followers that I am going to do as President Trump bids. And that's all this is. This is just a show. Things that we can consider, though, like if I get out of the feelings of this, one of the things that was mentioned in the Star Telegram article as well was there's an unclear budget for the process. So let's not forget, right? If we're going to hold our elected officials accountable for the salaries that they earn and the $1,000 COVID vaccines that they're going to receive, we should also be holding them accountable to say, hey, no, we don't need to do an audit of this thing. I don't know if this is something you could take to a vote or something, but like to say this is going to cost money and resources, and everything that we spend money on, it means we're not spending it on something else. Is this really what we want to spend it on? If the answer is yes from Tarrant County voters, you know what? By all means, let's recount all the freaking ballots. I just have a hard time believing that this is what people want to spend our taxpayer dollars on.
Yeah, what's also really kind of I feel bad about Whitley is because he seems like, a moderate Republican who, right, he saw the data on masks, he jumped on it for our city. He said, hey, time to mask up, right? He got crucified for that. He's saying, hey, he himself said, I express confidence that the voting was done fairly and with integrity, and the ballot board overseeing the counting of absentee ballots did everything in their power to make sure that if the ballot was cast, it was cast by the individuals whose name was on the ballot. So he's openly saying, and I think because he knows he's leaving, like he knows he doesn't have to get votes, and he's being honest. So it's just like, he's kind of getting thrown into the ringer, and Betsy Price is going to just go ahead and jump in that seat since she was able to kind of not have to be the one to make those decisions about mask. But something I want to know about the 4 really quickly is Trump lost 3 of the 4 counties. And so that's why they're getting targeted. And, in Tarrant, historically read, he earned 49.1% of the vote, and Joe Biden earned 49.3% of the vote. The real big kicker here is that this is all just to get the evangelical right fired up about voting in 2022 and 2024. They're just creating the blood in the ocean so that the sharks can bite. Everyone knows that this is just super small, and it's just getting people riled up. However, I just don't understand how they don't think the opposite will happen. Look what happened in Georgia when Donald Trump started saying fraud with the election. Even Republicans themselves felt like they didn't need to go to the ballot, and had an impact on Georgia turning blue. So it's just like, I feel like Texas is just looking really bad, and I think that's something me and you get grumpy about off the pod.
Yep.
Of how Texas is just looks bad, even though our numbers show that we're growing.
Yeah. You and I both work with folks across the country in a lot of different capacities, and I will tell you that the image that we have portrayed in Fort Worth, unfortunately, is a really big part of this because we like to pretend to be a small town for whatever freaking reason. We look terrible. Not just terrible, but like we look uninhabitable at this point.
They always say, why you live in Texas?
Yeah, legitimately, I have, we had people choose not to live here because of the noise that they see. So it might feel like noise, and it might feel like this doesn't impact our day-to-day lives. Folks, it changes the kind of person who wants to live here, and it changes the kind of people who stay here. That's nerve-wracking, but that's a topic for another time, and I think that last week's podcast was also a really good conversation about that as well.
Speaking of things that matter, last Wednesday we had the budget approval, which was about a $1.8 billion budget, just shy of a 5% increase from last year. And we've seen net taxable values increase by over $87 billion. We are responsible to keep the tax rate as low as possible, according to Maddie Parker in the conversation she had with Jessica Priest in the Fort Worth Report. What I really like about this conversation, which will be linked in the show notes, is that it just is like Jessica Priest does a good job of asking the hard questions. And really what's kind of disappointing about the conversation, it's really focused on things that sound like a small amount of the budget, $1.8 billion, and the whole conversation is focused around 10 firefighters being added and a $2 million economic development package, which seems very low depending on how kind of we have to compete with other cities that are actually bringing in 21st century kind of companies. Look at Phoenix becoming the HQ of semiconductor landscape in America. But with the new tax rate is 0.7325 per $100 valuation. Obviously, because of Fort Worth and the support by the Police Officer Association, Maddie continues to talk about how we need to support our police and offer that. I mean, looking at the amount of the budget they already get, I think we do support them, but we did again prioritize police staffing. Carrie Moon is going to be responsible for fixing our payroll system, which is something I guess we need to work on. And Carrie Moon is going to be leading that. Carrie Moon also had a piece in the Star Telegram talking, beating his chest about how strong Fort Worth is and how we're one of the few big cities to lower our property taxes. But really, everyone's going to be paying more property taxes because of the value of homes in Texas. So it really doesn't make that much of a difference. The big kicker for me is Maddie goes in and talks about how Fort Worth is one of the most transparent cities. And I'm going to stop right here just to get your take about it. And I have some things to say about it, about what does it mean to be a transparent city. But what is your take?
Yeah, I think what I will say is that a $1.8 billion budget was passed, and it didn't seem to be front page news, and it didn't seem to be that there was a lot of information about it, right? So, like, you have to sign up for the newsletter from the Fort Worth Report, or you need to be following them on social to go get it. It's not delivered to your front door like a old-fashioned newspaper is. So you have to be seeking that information, I think, to get this really good conversation with her and Priest. So I think that's one thing. Two, it was also like page 4 of the Star Telegram one day when it was like, oh yeah, by the way, we approved the over $1 billion budget. And I'm like, whoa. Like, taxpayers care about how their money's spent, and all of a sudden we're just going to put this on page 4 and be like, yeah, by the way, this happened. The thing I'll say about this conversation was there was a lot of focus on police and fire, specifically with the fire department. And let me just be candid. I don't know a whole lot about this stuff. I don't know a lot about the staffing. I don't know how it impacts like the city overall. But seeing things like, the response times have increased a minute no matter where you live in the city, inside the loop, and I saw that they use that language, inside the 820 loop and outside of the 820 loop, response times have increased. They're doing a study that says that we need more firefighters, which sounds like something that you would, build into a $1.8 billion budget. But then also seeing that if I can boil this down, we're going to get about 10 additional firefighters, per year is kind of what I gathered. I think, I don't know. I think I just left with a lot more questions than I did answers. Maddie Parker, I read the interview. I didn't listen to it, but man, if just reading it, I'm like, she is on her P's and Q's. She is as a mayor should be. She's incredibly well informed. And it seems like she's not afraid to tackle the questions that are asked of her. I think I'm just really at a loss for $1.8 billion. And all I've gathered is we're going to get a couple of firefighters out of this.
Yeah. And I think the big takeaway for when I spoke with Jimmy about it, so I did get the chance to connect with Jimmy, he was like, he's basically upset how they continue to move further away from the recommendations from the Race and Task Force when it comes to how we manage our police.
So if we switch from the firefighters to the police, Jessica Priest also asked Maddie Parker about the police. And, we don't have a name for it, so it's kind of like it goes back and forth between being called an oversight committee, but it's, Maddie Parker corrects and says, well, it's really about policies and procedures. and it just seems kind of like this feels like one of those things that they're just going to talk in circles about more and more. And to Jimmy's point, it seems like, hey, we had a task force who said this is something that we need. And now the solution is, well, we still don't even know what the goals of this thing are. And I'm like, how is that even possible? Like, y'all are all you're smart people who were given a task, go and complete it. It seems kind of like a no-brainer, but I felt like that just got talked in circles about in this, where it's like, well, we still don't have a goal and we still don't really know what that oversight committee is going to do, or the police committee. I don't know what to call it, since, they don't have a name for it because they don't have any goals for it. So it just felt like that wasn't going to happen. And then Maddie Parker made it abundantly clear that we got to be a city that loves our police. They have to feel supported. It's civil service. She went on a whole speech to make sure that the Police Officers Association had something to share in text and in audio at their next meeting to make sure that she continues to receive those donations, I guess. But hey, I get it. You gotta keep people happy, and they're an important part of the city. There's no doubt about it. But it's fallen real flat to me of just you had a recommendation, do something with it. And if you're not going to do anything with it, quit acting like it, put it down, step away, and just tell the city, hey, you know what? We don't think it's going to be valuable. We're not messing with this.
Yeah. And that's the thing. I think Fort Worth, she bragged about how transparent the city is. And I agree that the city is more transparent. I wouldn't say the 817 podcast had anything to do with them getting more transparent. But, at the end of the day, you're more transparent. I think the city's more transparent because they're confident enough to know that they already have the power. They're going to do what they want to do. I think that's what it is. Like, the worst is hiding in secrecy, I guess, and doing what you want to do, but you're able to be transparent. But if you ain't able to be collaborative, if you're missing the collaboration piece of a city that's so close to, being a purple city, so you have a full representation of people you have to represent, and half the people who are giving you recommendations, you say, oh, we're transparent. Like, I'm transparently here in this room, hearing your problems,
right?
But I'm not going to actually collaborate and say, you know what, I'm going to reach that way. But again, I'm not saying, I can understand also as a politician why that's hard, because we just saw what happened. We were talking about earlier what happened with Judge Whitley, right? So it's like, if I empathize with a part of a constituent in Fort Worth that didn't vote me in, they're going to snap me in half automatically for just understanding and empathizing with things that actually might make sense.
Yeah.
And so instead, we say, hey, at least we're transparent, but I'm just going to spotlight and act like I actually am going to do anything about it.
And this conversation is completely transparent. Again, I don't think she minced words. I don't think that she was unclear about what's happening. I don't think any of that. I think Maddie Parker, and heck, I think I like the audio versions of this now. I think she knows, the direction that the city's going and how people get their news and all of that. This is great. But to your point, EJ, you can be as transparent as you want to, but the power exists in the room. And we know, the more I read it, the more I'm just like, yeah, so probably nothing's going to happen with this police committee, right? And to be honest with you, I don't have enough information to know one way or the other. I've not done any research studies on how those oversight committees actually work, or what they change in cities, or if they change policy or practice in police departments. I have no clue. What I know is that enough people raised enough hell to ask for something, and it seems as if the city doesn't want to respond to it. And that to me sounds like that's your whole job, is to respond to the requests of the city. So the real question is, and 817, I think this is for you, if you read something like this, if you see it, if you're outraged, we got to go do something about it, right? We have to figure out how to get involved in the process. Or do we just read it, shrug our shoulders, say it is what it is, and we move on? Because that's how we end up with the elected officials that we have. That's how we end up in the predicaments that we have. So I think I can't be mad at the powers that be. I think the responsibility falls on the voters. If we genuinely care about this, if this is something that matters, then we need to go raise hell and make sure that it happens. If we don't, status quo.
Yeah. Well, what's crazy is something they're going to be super quote unquote transparent about is redistricting, but I think they can be, because I just think they're that powerful. right? I think we're looking at redistricting coming up. What you're seeing is Maddie has been super open about we need North Fort Worth representation on city council. And then the other kind of pull is we need more Latino representation on council. And so I wonder what that transparency is going to be. It's like, it's obviously the North Fort Worth is getting a lot of growth.
Right.
And it gives them another conservative seat because, Republicans as a whole need to hold on to Tarrant County because it's their, largest representation of a metro area besides Collin County. And maybe, I don't know, Jacksonville I don't know if it's Jacksonville switches as much as Fort Worth does. So that seat gives them, and so they might do I'm understanding how are they going to make peace when the redistricting comes up is I guess my point. And I know the Star Telegram had an awesome, really comprehensive article talking about Latino representation in a super sweet graph. But I'm gonna let you kind of what your takes on like these next steps. Okay, budget's done. Now we got redistricting, right? Now we got Aaron Dean, right? Like there's things coming that transparency is going to be great, but what decision gets made, and if there's not any bridges being set to people feel like they're met, it can be a tough run for Fort Worth in the next couple months.
Yeah, I see a pretty status quo Fort Worth on the horizon. We'll continue to be a pretty good place to live. We'll continue to be an all right economy. We'll continue to do fine. I don't think that we're in a position to be any more progressive than we are. I don't think that we're going to be in a position to add any add meaningful representation to communities that make up the majority of the county. I don't think that we're in a position to really truly innovate and adopt new practices. To your point, I think that I'll talk about redistricting specifically. I think that we're on track to just redistrict and see more of the same. Far North Fort Worth, Alliance, Texas, not Fort Worth, Alliance, Texas is going to be seeing more representation in Fort Worth City Council, where the inner city, the core of the city, the people who have been here for a long time and didn't just move here to take a new job at one of the new businesses in fake Fort Worth. I think that is going to be, they are going to see more representation. They have more people, right? So EJ made an allusion to this article, and I know he's going to link the graph, but in the Sunday paper on September the 19th, they have this great graph. And looking at District 7, which is again Far North Fort Worth Alliance, that total population is 129,000 people with a median household income of almost $100,000. That is the largest district in all of Fort Worth. They are going to get more representation. And the article is trying to say that, hey, we need more Hispanic and more Latino representation. There's just one problem. We've been here for a very long time, and we're still not getting the result. And now with redistricting, they're going to be able to use hard data, hard science, and say there are more people living there than there are in Hemp Hill, Northside, Diamond Hill. I have to give them a representative.
Yeah.
They're not wrong. It just sucks that it's in District 7 where the median household income is it's about $100,000, and 66% of residents there identify as white.
Yeah. The article kind of goes into also talking about the population of the Hispanic population being the fastest growing, with 35% of the population of Fort Worth is Hispanic. So technically, if we were doing city council math, a third of city council should be Latino. However, we have one city councilman, and I have heard that we've never had a Latina city council person. Don't know if I'm wrong there. If I'm wrong, I'll recorrect it next week. I want to kind of dive into what you said. Like, honestly, if I was Maddie Parker, Carrie Moon, or the people who are looking to hold the guard, I wouldn't be. We talked about this. I wouldn't be afraid to throw a bone to the Latino demographic, because Latino demographic does not mean a progressive demographic.
No, it doesn't.
So, especially in Texas, I think that's just something like I feel Fort Worth is spread out and on purpose, right? And we're going to complain. We're going to fight for the Latino seat, and we're probably going to get it.
Mm-hmm.
but that's going to confirm them for their spot to pit another business conservative white person in 7 to give another person there another Firestone.
Right.
And so I don't know. I feel like we're not fighting the fight. Like I threw to Kyle on the last pod, like, should we be like fighting to like separate cities? Like, should be the fight? Like, are we fighting too small, saying, hey, we want more representation on city council? Or should the part be like, hey, we actually want the council to be people who are in the city, and because, I mean, 7, look how far up that is. It's so far. And we're going to have the graph in there. And I actually want to read off some of the data statistics. If you knowing your district, knowing the population and the income of your district is really important in what we're talking about. I mean, I live in Nettles district, District 8, and I believe the average. They said the average household income is $44,000 and $44,188 in District 8. So District 7 has over twice as much. Income per household, and they're going to get the other seat, not District 8, not that area. So it's just it's serious stuff. But go ahead. I see you have the paper.
Yeah, no, I yes to all of that, and they are going to get the seat, and there might be a bone thrown to another section of the city, but at the end of the day, the growth is going to follow. Even though it doesn't mirror the makeup of the city, right? 66% of District 7 is white. So we're going to see another like predominantly affluent white council person, right? I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that in particular. Like that demographic in District 7, whatever, like that's fine. I have a problem with it not representing the core of the city of Fort Worth, which is, I think, to your point, Fort Worth was strategic enough to say, if we make sure that if we can reach as far as possible and make it pretty suburban out there, but still make it a large urban core, quote unquote, we will be able to run this show. For the inside of the city, and this is the thing, and I know EJ, dude, shout out to you, shout out to Jimmy for always pushing voting so much and talking so much about voting numbers. And for those of you who are listening who might be sick of it, you're about to hear some more. From the Star Telegram article from September 19th, again, for instance, the majority white Park Hill precinct had a nearly 44% voter turnout, while only 6% of eligible voters in the majority Hispanic Worth Heights area made it to the polls.
Wow.
And that's all the same District 9. The representation will not, and the representation doesn't matter. We got to get to the dang polls. We got to vote. We got to be informed. We got to find a way to make it more accessible. But to Maddie Parker's point, we're as transparent as we can be. You can show up to a city council member. We have more time to comment than some of these competitor cities, all of these things. And it's just not translating. So, so many great organizations in Fort Worth doing this work. And they're not like me. They don't, I'm the armchair guy who gets to jump into the 817 podcast here and there and read some articles and have some fun with EJ. But I really do appreciate the work of a lot of the nonprofits here who are focused on these issues, making it their daily work and making sure that voters get to the polls. Because until that happens, we ain't going to see nothing change.
This would be a good time to actually open up the graph that it's linked of the show notes. And I just really want to highlight. So this graph is called the demographics by council districts. It breaks down each council district by race and household income. The Hispanic population dominates District 2 with 58.7%, as of white 25.9%. District 8 is 47.8%, where whites are only 14.1%. District 9, 56.7%, to whites 34.4%. So those are some common things that, like, if you're looking at the graph, what's also really is the disparities on the median household income. Going back to District 8, I just said that only 14% of District 8 is white. And so they're not even the second highest race in that district. It's actually African American at 32.6. Where whites fall to third in the demographics is also District 5. District 5, which is Gina Bivens' district. 39% of the people who live in District 5 are black. 29.6 are Hispanic. Another area that's relatively close is the District 6, where District 6 is majority minority, but however, whites still are the highest with 38.6, but there's 27% Hispanic and 27.2% black. And so that is Jared Williams' district. Now, if you look at the household incomes, the average household income, the median household income in Fort Worth is around $62,000. District 8 as the lowest is $44,188. District 8 is also in the loop. That is something to note. Now, District 7, which we've been talking about, is $100,000 at $99,258 to be exact. But that is a massive difference there, right? Others that are over the Fort Worth median household income is District 4 at $78,396, District 3, $74,934. And then all the other districts, District 6 is also over it with $66,000, but all the other districts fall under that quite largely, right? So if $62,000 is the median household income, District 2 is at $57,000, District 5 is at $52,000, District 9 is at $58,000, and District 8 is at $44,000. So what you're seeing is that there's half the districts that fall much further down than the median household income, and then the other districts have way over the median household income of $62,000. So it's not like the community is close. It's actually like those that have, over $70,000 and then those who have, under $60,000. Very different. And so check out the graph, take a look at it. And it was really well done by Star Telegram.
Total sidebar, Fort Worth Report. Keep doing the great stories that you're doing about like where I live. I love those segments. I think interviewing people and getting them to be excited about talking about where they live. That's excellent. I loved that. They even reached out as far as Haltom City. So I was like, yo, shout out, go Buffs.
Hey, if Haltom City can't be in Fort Worth, why should, how did Haltom City and White Settlement? I mean, both are their own cities and they're closer to us than Tanger Outlet. like that's just, how can Tanger Outlet get a council, but Haltom City, doesn't, so it's just crazy. Let's go ahead and move into wins and losses.
Wins and losses, man.
Got it. Well, let's start with the losses. I know we had a lot of losses just because.
Oh my God. Okay. Yeah. So for those who don't know, I'm a TCU alumni, proud TCU alumni. The L is, first of all, I already don't like when we lose to SMU, Baylor, or UT. So losing to SMU was a definite L, but let me tell you what the real loss is here. I'm sick and tired of acting like a small town, EJ, and we act like a small town when on the front page of the Wednesday newspaper, which let's face it, if you're a subscriber, I am a Wednesday, Sunday subscriber, right? So the Wednesday paper, I see it as like, you should have some pretty good stuff here and then save the rest for Sunday. No, what's on the front page is some kid, a wide receiver from SMU, going off about Fort Worth, about, oh, nobody wants to visit you. Why are Twitter fingers from a NCAA athlete on the front page of the 13th largest city's newspaper? Do you want to know why, everybody? It's because we can't get over ourselves. We are our own worst enemy. We want to be a small town. We love playing small potatoes. And seeing him on the front page of the news, who, by the way, he grew up in Tarrant County. So that's ridiculous.
Yeah, he was like, I think he's like salty because TCU didn't give him a scholarship.
Be better. But like, no, that's unfair. I wasn't a D1 athlete, but like all things aside, that belongs on the sports page on page 2. That is not page 1 news when we're approving billion-dollar budgets, when we have what we have going on in schools, when we have all of the news that we have. Front page does not go to a collegiate receiver making remarks at a press conference that have zero bearing on this city. We have a little brother syndrome. People in Dallas say that. Congratulations, we just confirmed it. That was a giant L in my mind of the mentality of Fort Worth.
Hey, I know it was a loss. I heard it seemed like I'm not a TCU alum or watch TCU football, but it seems like hard loss. But it seems like a lot of chirping, and it seems like people were not happy at how, I guess, they won and how they were acting when they won. But
yeah, I don't even care about that stuff. I like the Fort Worth Dallas thing. Like I like that part of the rivalry, but front page of the paper. Come on, guys. We're a bigger city than this. Let's act like it.
Yeah. My loss goes to white collar crime in Fort Worth. That does not
way more important.
That doesn't get to get recognized, but because of journalism, here's the problem with journalism. This is why people don't care about it. It's because journalism is not meant to be clickbait. Journalism is not meant to get you in your emotions. Journalism is meant to show facts and to share things that cities should know. And sometimes that stuff is really, really boring, like the Tarrant Regional Water District. But the latest CEO, I mean, search Fort Worth Report, Tarrant Regional Water District, and you'll learn so much about how the former, I don't know if they called him a CEO or director, was just basically given paid vacation money to $60,000, $100,000 to people in the organization, paid leave, kind of money for, I guess, overtime and other things like that, hiring family members and just doing a lot of shady work. So a new formed coalition seeking accountability, this is kind of, I guess, from the Tarrant Regional Water District Board of Directors, called for a forensic audit of the entity's spending during a hearing on the tax increase. This is another time I heard forensic audit. Last time was early in the show when we were trying to forensic audit the election. But this forensic audit makes sense to me. We need to be doing this
Yes.
one over here. Board members will vote Tuesday whether to keep tax rate at 2.87 cents per $100 evaluation. Average property values in the water district grew more than 7% in the last year, meaning homeowners will pay the district more in taxes. The average home market value rose from $206,487 last September to $221,634, according to Tarrant Appraisal District estimates. Now, the whole point of the story here is how we want to actually have the Water District Board executives to have just more oversight. Like we keep talking about police and having oversight there. We're now asking it for here because, I mean, this Jack Stevens dude, direct payments of $300,000 to now retired general manager Jim Oliver and $60,000 to Panther Island executive director J.D. Granger. Attorneys have completed an inquiry into the arrangements but are still in the midst of legal discussion. And so hopefully this board comes through because this is a shit show. And shout out to us having reporting on it. Too bad, we're all too busy to get passionate about it. But I just wonder how often does this kind of happen in government?
Yeah, I am going to own it myself and say that I am a terrible Fort Worthian for not caring more about what's going on with the water district because to EJ's point, he's right. It's kind of dry. It's a lot of information. It feels like it doesn't impact us, but hey, man, these are our funds. These are all our dollars, and they're going into people's pockets and not into improving the city and making it a better place. So,
tax dollars.
I'm glad that you're bringing it up in the in the podcast, and I will do a better job of staying informed on that.
Let me go with my win because your win's more lighthearted and nice and a good closing. Like mine is kind of heavy because it's a win that should have been a win a long time ago. But the murder trial of former Fort Worth police officer charged in shooting the death of Tatiana Jefferson is set to November 16th. Aaron Dean is going to be on trial. And so it's finally here. Man, Fort Worth might be in national news for a couple things. It's been quiet. The paper has been quiet doing off stories. But soon, I don't know if that's going to be the case with all the things that are going on. And so I think it's a win that there's progress, but I don't know if it's going to be a win on the outcome. We'll see.
Yeah, I'm glad that there is a date set for the family. I think, obviously that's very important, and I'm glad that there's a date set. I'm interested to see how this goes. I'm sure the coverage on this thing, we are not going to be able to pick up, starting on November the 16th, we are not going to be able to pick up a newspaper and not see this story for a very long time.
Yep.
To EJ's point, yeah, my win is lighthearted, and honestly, it's because, and I've been pretty busy myself. I haven't had a whole lot of time to dive into the news, so thank you, EJ, for always curating and helping me get prepared for this as well. And I'll be honest, when I did flip through, I didn't see a lot of wins. We talked so much about how Fort Worth and Texas is just kind of like, hey, guys, do better. Hey, y'all, do better. My win is this. The Trinity Trail is really cool, but it's really hot, and there's a lot of sun on it. Changing weather, definite win. Second win, I ran on it. I started behind like the REI and the Whole Foods and stuff. I'd parked back there because I know that they had opened it up back there. What's really nice about it is if you run down that way all the way to about like where the Mutts is and the Clear Fork and the Hewlin exit is, that's probably the most shade you're going to get on the Trinity Trail ever. So it's really nice to not run in the sun as much. Now that I know that's there, I think that would be more of something that I use when the weather is warmer. But I love the trail. The trail is so cool. It's such an underrated part of our city, I feel like. And it's probably underrated because it doesn't have a lot of shade. So the shade was awesome. But I also know that we had to clear some land in order for that to happen, which also has a downside. So had a good run. I still love this city. I still love being here. I still love the 817, but I really hope that we have some better days and some better news coming out soon.
Awesome. Well, 52 minutes and 45 seconds. That's before edited. And I know what's so awesome about Jimmy. He speaks really slow and smooth like butter. And so me and Tony talk really fast. And so I know we shot a lot. This was a heavy thing. The fact that we got it done in an hour, all the stuff we hit. I know we shot a lot at you guys, but what I will do this time, because I know it was a lot, and trying to maintain all the papers here. We literally have 2 weeks of papers here because we had an interview, and then we kept all the papers and going through and highlighting them. I'm going to link every story that we mentioned so that if you want to kind of read through more and kind of dive more and get some, you can do that. Tony, thanks for being here as always, and always enjoy having you on the pod. Last pod we did is Fort Worth Sustainable, one of our highest pods we've had.
Hey,
so.
That's cool. I like it.
Dope.
I appreciate it.
Swipe, dopamine swipe, dopamine swipe.